Carl Reed with 247 Sports.
That means they don't take breaks if they 24/7.
Around the clock.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You in the class of 2024, you better stop playing around and make a decision.
And I go in there with my wife, and Mike Norvell is talking to a bunch of recruits, and he's got it pumping, he's got it going on. I leave the room with Dan Lannon, but my wife stays in the room with Mike Norvell, and I thought she was going to get in the transfer portal.
If they are going to be recruiting every day, you better be working every day, and that's the real deal.
Dr. Reed is like Nate Dogg. You know it's a hit when he spit.
Oh, I love that. It is time now for Read Between the Lines with the coach, Carl Reed. You are always getting hit up for questions, some life advice, and, this ever-changing world of college football. So we are answering your burning questions, and we mean it. You have asked questions, and we're going to go ahead and answer them. Let's go to this first one. It's asking, what do I need to do to get stars? What would you say?
Well, Emily, as a high school coach, I coached a 5-star. I had a couple of 4-stars, and I had several 3-stars. And I always felt like the stars took care of itself with recruiting. The offers came first. When college coaches were really interested in a guy, they would start to offer scholarships, and the kids' recruitment would go up, and then the stars were assigned. But Blair, I know you here. I want to bring you in because you're a member of the rankings team. So the biggest question that I always get asked from guys is, Coach, I'm better than that guy. What's up with my stars? Answer this question for all of these guys watching this today.
Well, Carl, as you know, we're on the road quite a bit throughout the season and in the offseason, all the camps, all the showcases. This is the question. This is the burning one that a lot of parents, a lot of coaches have. A lot of recruits will come up to us and say, hey, how do I get my stars? Well, it starts with varsity film. It has to be varsity film for us to be able to evaluate that accurately. You're going up against players your age or maybe older, and you're showcasing yourself on Friday nights. That's the one bottom line thing that we need, is that varsity film before an evaluation goes through. And then the other thing is multi-sport production, right? We need to have verified data on the track. We need maybe some basketball context. We need a player to maybe play another sport, baseball or basketball or whatever it may be, and that gives us a bigger and a longer resume to look at. So the stars, like you mentioned, in a way take care of themselves because we need production at first, and we need that varsity film, and then I think everything kind of continues to roll from there, right? This is where the process begins, but it doesn't begin with stars. It begins with production, and it becomes a bigger thing once a recruit becomes a bigger name and that recruiting process really kicks off.
So Blair, does size matter and recruitability matter? There are guys out here who have dominated high school football, but they might be a 6'1" lineman, and you know that most of the guys playing at the big time schools are going to be in that 6'4" to 6'7" range. Does that matter? Does that come into play when we're giving rankings?
It's probably a bigger thing than even the production on the field or the stats that you're putting up, right? I don't think we're ranking the rushing leaders in a given state, right? We're ranking based on projectability and upside. We're thinking about potential. We're thinking about physical upside. We're thinking about what that player could look like in 3 or 4 years when we're projecting not only to college, but also to the NFL. So that's another thing, right? Where maybe a 3-star prospect has better numbers than a 4-star prospect in a given category, but we have to go with the player with the lesser stats because we think highly of him down the road, right, down the line when it's 3 or 4 years. So yeah, stats give us a taste of the equation, but I think it's more important for you to have more projectability and that physical upside as we look forward and we try to predict the future.
And we hear measurables all the time when it comes to the draft process, so of course it would be the same thing in terms of projecting. That was incredibly helpful. I hope that there are people watching that are maybe recruits or parents of recruits taking notes, because I didn't know the thing about varsity. I mean, that's so important. If you're sending junior varsity tape,
no JV film.
We're not even looking at it, apparently.
We don't want to see a JV tape.
I know, so that is super helpful. That's one question. We got so many here. Let's ask this next one here, saying, how do athletes follow up on their offers and get clarification as to what level an offer really is? I think that this is a common misconception. People think an offer is an offer, right? Set them straight.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you got a real committable offer, they're going to answer the phone when you call.
Yeah.
If somebody offers you a scholarship and then you can't get them on the phone or you can't get them to respond to a text message, to a tweet, then understand that things are about to change and your offer probably went up in smoke.
How much confusion is there typically, do you see, with an offer?
I think there's a ton of confusion with offers because players aren't educated, and the college coaches have a lot of blame in this as well. You're not telling the kid the truth from the beginning. If you give a kid an offer, in their mind, they haven't been through recruiting before. Recruiting is what we do. We're in the business of recruiting. Us at 247 Sports, the college coaches, but a kid that's 14, 15, 16 years old, when he gets his first offer, he doesn't understand that that means I may not be able to go to that school. He's thinking that he hit the jackpot and it's a dream come true. So we have to be more honest when we're handing these offers out to these guys on what that really means.
Got to verify that offer. All right, we got another question here. When it comes to playing multiple sports, is it still as valuable in today's recruiting arena? If so, which ones do you think that coaches value more?
Well, Blair just told us, Emily, in the rankings, how much stock the rankings team puts into verified track times. Were you a good basketball player? I can tell you that every Division I coach who has ever come into my school has asked about what other sports do they play? What do you run in 100? Are you a wrestler? Are you a championship level wrestler? Are you a great baseball player? It matters. A lot of kids now are being told by trainers and by coaches at their schools not to play multiple sports. Still a lot of value in guys who are multi-sport athletes. You'll get more cooperation from your school, from your teachers. You'll get more help. If your history teacher is the basketball coach and you struggle in history, go help them win some games.
If you are finding value in this conversation, go ahead and reminder to hit that like button so we know that you're watching. I have a question about when it comes to specializing in sports versus diversifying. Because say I'm an athlete and I'm playing basketball and I've got dreams of being the best basketball player of all time and going to the NBA, but I'm 5'4" and I am much better at maybe being a running back. How often do you have those tough conversations where you have to say, okay, it's helpful for you to play basketball and to continue to diversify in your sports, but football is where you need to put your dreams and your attention? From a coach, how do you have that conversation?
I had them all the time. Yeah. And ultimately, you want the player to make the decision with the information they have. All of you 6'3", 6'4" post players in basketball that love to hoop, there's a better future for you maybe on the football field. But you also have to really want to play football. They all don't want to play football. You can go to a lower level of basketball. But the opportunities are there for you if you're open to playing what you might be best at. And what you may be best at, but what you think you may be best at may not be the same thing.
Which is why we have a helpful coach like you to have some of those difficult conversations with them. So those are the questions that you guys submitted ahead of time. A reminder, you can submit questions to Carl at Coach Reed Live on Twitter. But some of you are submitting questions now, so we're going to go ahead and answer them. You have not seen these, so here's a little surprise here. Tyler asking Coach Carl, what's one of the craziest recruiting stories you've got during your time as coach?
Oh man, I've got a bunch.
I bet you have many.
I've got a bunch of crazy recruiting stories, and you try not to go too deep into it with naming names. But one thing that I will say specifically is about how important academics are in recruiting. And I will tell this to kids, and I talked about this a little earlier on my social media. I was in a situation with a young man who was one of the best running backs in the state, but his grades were shaky. And a coaching change happened right before National Signing Day. And you know everybody wants to go play Power 5 football, Emily. And he had his opportunity to go play. And I got a call from the head coach of a Pac-12 school, and he was gonna sign this young man. But when we sent the transcript in, the grades weren't there. And so he ended up at an FCS school and he qualified later. But in that moment, he wasn't able to. And I think that's a devastating thing. So if I was a player, I would really focus on staying strong academically throughout the process.
Very important advice. We got a last minute edition here that we're going to put up on the screen. Someone asks, how do you handle a coach forcing you into the transfer portal? And I'm asking this knowing that there's probably some people watching right now going, wait, what? Explain.
If your coach is forcing you in the transfer portal, and I want you to pay close attention to this, and you have to be extremely honest with yourself, a coach is going to force you into the transfer portal for only a couple of reasons. Number one, he doesn't think you're good enough to play on his team. And you have to ask yourself, why does he believe that? You're in the meetings, you're watching film, you know what your performance is. Number two, you've winterized somewhere. Either academically, you're not going to class, you're missing meetings, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Now, if he tries to push you in, you have a couple of options. If you have a really good high school coach with great relationships, you can stand firm and tell them you're not leaving. And your high school coach can probably back you up. If you come from a school with a bunch of prospects, they can probably help you, but you're going to have to be okay with not playing. The second thing that I would say is, if they force you or try to force you in the portal off the team, you can still stay at your school on scholarship, but not be a member of the football team. So if those issues come up, you're just going to have a decision to make.
That's got to be a tough, tough conversation to have as a coach. I assume you do not relish that.
Well, it's tough, but guys have to realize going into the process, these are one-year renewable scholarships, and this is a business. Where college coaches have went wrong in making guys understand this process, I've heard it 100 times. This isn't a 4-year decision. It's a 40-year decision. No, this could actually be a 4-month decision if you go into school and you're not ready to be a student and not ready to play. So if you're a recruit, when you go into college and the thrill of National Signing Day and being recruited, they're going to expect you to produce, and especially now because they're paying you also.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's a common misconception, too. We see all these players hit the portal, and we just assume that that means that they believe that they can go get big money elsewhere or they can play elsewhere. It's not always their decision. I think we learned a lot through seeing what happened at Colorado this season with Deion Sanders. Is it is a two-way street. It is a conversation that you've got to have with your coach. It's not just the player going rogue, and it's not just the coach going rogue. Every situation is different here. We got a question here from Andrew asking, Coach, how do coaches know how to flip a player from their normal position to something else? Are there certain traits that you look out for? You're
looking for size and speed and mobility. If a guy is a quarterback but he's 5'10", does he have the speed and the lateral movement to move to a DB or receiver? Now, some of the things that Blair touched on earlier when we talk about two-sport guys, what's the track times, right? If you're a guy that can run a 10-400, but you're an undersized quarterback, that probably translates to you being able to play receiver or playing in the secondary. If you run an 11-2, that probably doesn't help you much with that. So there's other things. Are you a great basketball player that we can see your lateral movement when you're playing defense for 94 feet? There are some things that let coaches know that they can move and change your position based on your overall athletic skills and verifiable times, which is another reason why you should play multiple sports. It's only going to help you.
Absolutely. We just brought this whole segment full circle. A reminder to send your questions to Carl at Coach Reed Live on Twitter. Also, if you forget to send them and you join us live on the show, we will throw in a couple bonus questions as well. So thank you for your questions, and thank you, Carl.
Thank you.